Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2 of INDX Accessories. Lovely to see you here this morning. I am Eric Bisgrave, fashion industry journalist of hundreds of years' experience. It's delightful to be here again. This is my 3rd INDX show of the season, having done menswear and lingerie previously. It occurred to me when I came to the menswear show how great it would to be back in a physical environment of buyers meeting sellers, sellers meeting buyers after the enforced lockdown by you-know-what. So once we got COVID out of the way, we all thought, isn't everything in the garden going to be lovely? And then one or two other things happened, such as war in Europe, death of the Queen, change of government, and now we've got this rather annoying cost of living crisis, which is going to have an impact on everybody. But the good thing is that people are still going to be buying accessories. So we're here to discuss some ways in which you as sellers and you as buyers can improve your prospects for selling accessories. I'm going to get the expert help of my 2 colleagues who are now asked to introduce themselves. So.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Goodacre, Chief Executive for the British Independent Retailers Association, and just briefly about us, we have 3,000 members in the UK. We offer business services, advice, insight to the sector, and also lobby on their behalf with local and national government.
Okay.
Good morning. So I'm Martin Foster, I'm the owner and managing director of Lakeland Leather. We have a 28 retail outlet business, plus we are true multi-channel, so we wholesale and we trade digitally on many platforms and our own website. And we're leather specialists, as the name Lakeland Leather probably suggests to you.
Okay, excellent stuff. So, yeah, the current economic situation, of course, is slightly annoying in many different ways, but it might turn out to be relatively short term. Let's hope it does. But there are some long-term trends that I think everybody in the industry ought to be aware of. I'm going to invite Andrew to give us an overview of some retail trends, some trends within retailing, particularly independent retailing, that he thinks it would be good for you to be mindful of.
Yeah, thanks Eric. I think I'd go back to the beginning of COVID really, because there seem to be 3 highlights, I guess I would call them, that stood out. And some of those were before, but COVID added acceleration to them. The number one big benefit to independent retailers and local high streets was that local shopping became at a rebirth, at a renaissance. People were wanting to, had to explore locally. You couldn't, or you weren't encouraged to travel too far anyway, so a local shop became a point of interest. But actually what the public realised is that you can get an awful lot from your local shop. You don't have to go to a retail park or drive 20 minutes or catch a train journey somewhere. You can get what you need more readily, more locally. And given the way people's work habits have changed as a result of COVID, a lot more people working from home, or at least sort of more hybrid working, then actually people are spending and continue to spend more time where they live. And that naturally means that they're more interested in their local environment, their local economy, they're more inclined to spend locally. So there's one trend that we suspect will continue over and above, and one where it's all about local retailers making sure that the customers know what they have available. Customers aren't very good at finding out what's available, so really tell them what's available. The second trend that was there before COVID, but again was accelerated, and that's all about sustainability and what people call a conscious consumer. So we saw many more members asking us, because we run a buying group, small buying group in certain areas, wanting to know about sustainability, wanting to know about environmentally friendly products. And certainly that's still a trend that is there. You know, people, especially a younger generation, certainly a generation below me, I'm thinking about my daughters, are far more aware and want to know more about the provenance and about how environmentally friendly a certain product is, whether it's a belt, whether it's a bag, whether it's a scarf. They want to know, and they want to feel as if they're buying in a sustainable way as well. Now, there is a challenge because sustainability often adds a premium in terms of price. So in the current climate, will that continue? I saw some research at the weekend that suggests that for the middle income and higher income, sustainability or environmentally friendly purchases, for 50% of them, that's half, it's still there one or two reasons for choosing a certain product. So it's very much middle class at the moment, sustainability, or feels like it. But that may come under pressure. But I still think conscious consumerism is here to stay. People want to know more. And actually, if you look across at retailers, not just retail businesses, large and small, have done an awful lot to change the way they buy, to change the way they present products and what they do there. And the third one, which really was accelerated in COVID because of the circumstances, online shopping and online sales. You know, when you lock down and the shops aren't closed and you can't go anywhere, you naturally turn to the screen and start buying. I think for non-food, it accounted for 67% of sales, retail sales, in the middle of those lockdowns. That's huge. Prior to that, it was 19, 20. That just shows the sort of growth that occurred. It's back down now. It's not back. It's down to below 30%, which means that people have come back out to shops, and people still want to touch, feel, and know. But what people are doing is definitely using the online, just the power of online searches to find out what's available, to compare, contrast, and then still maybe more inclined to want to make that purchase in the shop if they can find it in the shop and a shop near them. But it's still a very powerful mechanism, is the online stuff. So when, you know, in terms of trends, there are positive trends for independents, I find, because it's about local. I think independents are often different, they present themselves differently, and I think sustainability is a key USP that they can develop, because you don't always compete on price in independent stage. And then in online's about, to me, yes, it's growing and grown, it's important. We saw many members become social media savvy as a result. Well, a step towards it anyway, savvy is maybe a bit too far. But they engage a lot more with it, and it supports their business, their shop, it complements it, it doesn't actually replace it necessarily. So those are the three trends out there. But you may have those trends, retailers just have got to work hard to make it work for them, because customers have got plenty of choice. You know, there's not short of competition out there, so retailers have still got to be smart, focused, and understand how to sell to customers.
Thank you, Andrew. I think one interesting thing to pick up what Andrew said about the benefit of lockdown was that independent retailers had to find a different way to communicate to their customer base because the shop wasn't open. So I think possibly too often a lot of independents were frightened of anything online. They felt it was bad and it would kill them off. I think a lot discovered that they could have an okay, worthwhile income stream. No, I'm hearing voices again. Would be scared of selling online. Speaking to them, I found found it was not actually too difficult to sell online, and it was a useful income stream. It was an essential income stream during lockdown, and one that's continued a little bit. But the major thing for an independent retailer who has a shop is to get the customer into the shop. And I think a lot of people discovered the power of social media, of communicating, of saying, listen, we're here, come and see us and you will have a great experience. And I think the major thing that I was hearing from people was they had to find on social media their tone of voice and they had to project their image, the thing that they make their independent shop different and independent. They had to find a way of doing that. And I look at a lot of people's websites and a lot of people's social media and just think, my God, this is boring. This must take you a long time, and it's so deadly dull. You know, there's nothing here that makes me want to engage with you as a business or you as a person. I think too often independents actually don't project themselves. You just get this amorphous, here's a business, here's, well, not even Eric's Fashion, because that would be a person's name, like, you know, menswear shop, let's say, and there's no personality there. I believe that in many cases, people shop with an independent business because of that independent owner, and that independent owner should be projecting herself or himself to the audience. And I know in some cases, particularly women, don't like the photograph taken because I find photographs of doing the work I do, but the ones that do it make a huge difference. They know that if it's Mary or Jane or Betty or whoever the hell it is saying it, they've got a point of view that people want to buy into. And I think if that is I won't say COVID was worth it if people had learned that, but that's a really positive thing about what we learned during the time when shops weren't open. So listen, we're here at a buying show, and all this lovely product is going to be finding its way into lots of shops, probably the far side of Christmas, and then the retailers have got the fantastic job of selling it to all the lovely consumers who'll be worried about their energy bills and their housing bills and etc. So with that wonderful upbeat thought in mind, I'm going to pass over to Martin Foster, who's going to give us some of his tips based on 30 years of experience in the retail business about good tips for more effective selling. And I kind of make a prediction we'll be hearing a lot about bugbears that Martin has on the strength of yesterday. And Martin has a very high-tech presentation for us, like Andrew and I. There we are.
That's me.
That's a view from his office. I've been to his office.
Yeah.
But if you stand on a chair and look.
This is actually part of our brand set, and it is actually a piece of artwork that we have designed this year that is elements of the Lake District. And I could talk about that for ages, but you'd find that boring, so I'll skip on. Now, yesterday, I looked at buying skills, and we spoke about some of the topics on here. So I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about the other side, which is buyers being sellers. So if there's anything on there that you think, oh my God, that sounds interesting, please come and ask me afterwards, and I'll take it for it separately. And yesterday, even though it was a Sunday, I made people look at some maths. You won't be disappointed. Today I'm going to make you look at some more maths. So get ready, strap yourselves in. We're about to go on a bit of a journey. Right, if you are a buyer, then there's a golden rule. You must not buy it until you've worked out how you will sell it. Simple, isn't it? Yeah. But it really is important. You can make some very quick, bad mistakes by buying something, and then it comes to the retail store and you can't actually merchandise it properly, or you've bought it for the wrong demographic for that customer. So never buy it until you've worked out how you can sell it. Now the first top left point up there is capture customer details, and I mean that in several different ways. Clearly, if you can have a dialogue with your customer through social media, through email, because you've got to sign up for them, that's super good. But I also mean it in a different way. When you start your retail business, you start out on this pure vision of what you want to be, what you want to sell, how you will sell it. Capture that, and then start to refine it over time. What you're trying to do is have a very clear view of your customer, the persona of that customer. Stick it up somewhere that is in front of you every day, and as I say, refine it as you go along. And the reason that that's important, I'll give you an example. Our very best selling leather jacket is called Tony. We do it in God knows how many colours. It's a beautiful, premium quality leather biker jacket. Retails at $259. It's English sheep, it's aniline, best you can get. We've run that style, I don't know how many years. We've run that style year after year after year. And it is targeted at a certain demographic. It's the typical Lakeland leather demographic. It's a lady who's 40 years plus. And we hold that style true to what we are as a design house. I come to a show, a buyer comes on my stand and looks at Tony jacket and says, oh, I don't like that. It's not got zips, it's not got a stud, it's not quite the design that I like. Now that may be true if that buyer is still holding true to the persona of their original brand identity when that store was created. But what tends to happen over time is when you're 35 and you launch your business and you have all these ideals and you've got that model perfect, by the time you're 40, you're dressing differently. By the time you're 45, you've moved on quite substantially, and if you're not careful, you're starting to age your selection in an adverse way against what your brand originally was. A lot of businesses fall into that trap, so that's what I mean by capture customer. And then when you come shopping at a show like this, make sure you have in mind your persona of who your customer is. We give them names. In our business, we have names for the people who shop in our store, and that name is a definition of who that customer is. What she likes, what she doesn't like, how old she is, has she still got children. We create a persona. When my buyers come to a show like this, they say, will Sally, she's not called Sally, will Sally like this? And it just grounds it back into buying, and it helps you sell. Okay, that's capture customer. You thought it was a small block, it's a big conversation. Moving on. A common question. Do you put the price of a product in an email? Do you put the price of a product in an email? It's a simple rule. If your price is a good price, the answer is yes. I.e. by that I mean either it's on offer or actually it's market leading. The answer is yes. If it isn't, if it's just run of the mill, then the answer is no. Invite the customer to come in and then actually sell them the benefits of that product. From an email perspective, it will have a different click-through rate, and I'll talk email in a minute or two. Time-sensitive offers, I won't talk to, it's obvious, and we've only got so long here today. Do let customers know if you're price competitive. Often the perception of independent retail is that it is expensive. Not always the case, so if you are price competitive, let them know in one shape or form, either by an offer, price in the window, price comparison, tell them, for goodness sake, price promise if you dare. Change rooms is obvious. Colour psychology, probably for a different day, but if you're interested in colour psychology, I am as a retailer, because colour does influence buying decisions quite differently. Talk to me afterwards. Window display. How long do you keep a window display? Window displays work really well because they bring a customer through your door. They are your advertising window. As a retailer, we track sales from a window. We've done studies before to see what the drop-off rate is from putting a window installing, enjoying the sales. At what point does it start to drop off? The answer is about 3 weeks. So we change our windows every 3 weeks. Simple tip, it may or may not work for you. One on display versus several on display versus what I call a bulk stack has a dramatically different impact on how a customer shops your store. One on display is, I'm on display, don't touch me, don't disturb me, don't take it. Yeah? We use it on a premium line. We use it when I know that I've got sales team in place to engage with a customer and sell. Great. Several on display is, this is a beautiful handbag, come and have a look at it, please pick it up and bring it to my counter. Great. That's most of the time, that's how you should be retailing. Many on display, a bulk stack, is an offer. I've got 10 of them. It used to be this price, it's now this price. There's 10, that's all I have got. Buy them quickly because tomorrow there'll be 6, the day after there'll be 2, and then it's gone. So the way that we merchandise and the way that we display significantly influences how customers buy. Right, okay, how are we doing? We're probably halfway through. Yesterday I spoke about block discounting, and 20% off as a block discount, and it was a bugbear of mine. It's one of my biggest bugbears, yeah, one of many, but I really did dislike it, because as I was saying yesterday, what actually happens is all it really does is it accelerates the sale of your best sellers. Yeah? In that your customer comes in, as they normally would do, and statistically, clearly, your best sellers are the ones that appeal most. So why give 20% off something that sells really well? What you really should be doing with this type of offer is directing them towards those lines that you regret having bought in the first place. Those are the ones that you want to discount and sell. Now then, because I promised you some maths, let's just do some maths now. Right. So, don't worry, I'm not going to make you do all of this, I'm just going to highlight the point. A 20% discount in real terms, if you've bought it in on a markup of 2.5, will basically mean that you will need to increase your unit sales to stand still in profit terms by 63%. If you think your 20% offer is going to increase your sales across your category or store by that level, go for it. I'm happy for you to do it. If you think you won't achieve that, forget it. All you've done is you've given away profit and you've reduced the stock of your best sellers that you could have had at full margin. Now that's on a 2.5 markup. On a free markup, if you're at that level or higher, then it's still a 1.5 multiplier, a 50% increase in unit sales. It's quite substantial, isn't it? Right, let me flick back. Next, I'm going to now break my rule about never give 20% off. If you are an online retailer, fill your boots. You're not going to upset me. It is not a good bear of mine because online retail works in a totally different way. Hopefully you get this. If you don't, then I'm about to try and explain it. If you are an independent store, a customer comes into that store, touches the product, hopefully tries it on, engages with your staff, and the heart side, the emotional side of their decision, encourages the purchase. We know it, it's obvious, it's common sense. In an online environment, there is no emotional engagement. It is a much more rational engagement. Now, we as a retailer, we've got an online business over 5 million. We are sending out emails 3 times a week. One of those emails will be what I call a brand email. So we will talk about a specific product, its attributes, it's beautifully photographed, it looks fantastic. The open rate, attachment rate, and sale rate of that email will typically be about 60% of what would be an offer email. So the other 2 emails in the week will be an offer email, and some of them might be 20% off, some of them might be money off. Now, from an online retail perspective, they are needed to create quite a lot of your income from an online sales perspective, because you're not engaging with an emotional decision, you are trying to engage on a rational, it's a good offer decision. So that's when you are allowed to discount. Right, one other thing that I wanted to mention, since I'm talking online, and this is your bonus and it's got more numbers on it, because I do like numbers, you may have actually worked that out. A lot of online businesses, let me backtrack from that. If you're an independent retailer moving online for the first time, the models work differently. Selling in a shop does work differently to selling online. If you are not a person that enjoys looking at numbers, then you probably will struggle to make profit online, because online is a mathematical model. And that's probably why I enjoy it. You spend some money on some marketing. That marketing comes through to your website. You have some maths that result in engagement and conversion rate, and that conversion rate therefore results in a sale, and that sale creates a margin. Now this is an extract, this is real numbers, these aren't my numbers, but they are real numbers. Clicks, and this is a monthly, no, I think it was a 2-weekly view of this particular retailer. Clicks are clicks through to the website, so 55,000 clicks. CPC is cost per click, so from a Google AdWords perspective, how much did someone have to pay to buy those keywords to bring them through to the website? 27 pence isn't an untypical number. Sometimes we're paying up to 50-55 pence on a keyword in peak season. So this particular retailer spent £15,000. Users are customers. Sessions are the number of times that customer came into your digital store. So you can see that there are more sessions, more visits than there are customers. Pages per session is how many pages they looked at during your visit. That's the equivalent in a retail perspective of what we call dwell time, how long they spent on their site. Bounce rate is every marketeer's nightmare, and the one that I always, it's my bugbear, is the one that I always tell my team off when that goes incredibly high, because it shows that you've wasted marketing spend. A bounce rate is a customer who's landed on a page and not interacted with that page and left immediately. You've just wasted 27 pence. And you can see in this particular retailer's case, 45% of their spend was wasted spend. Conversion rate, I put at 2% here because that's what this retailer has. People like Jules quote it to 3.5% conversion rate. The typical for the fashion industry is between 2 and 3, so relatively low. So in this retailer's case, they had 1,000 sales and they created £90,000 of revenue. Now, this is where people get online retailing wrong. The cost of acquisition for each of those sales was £15. So you have bought a sale for the cost of £15, and that's why I mean 20% discount in online world is a different methodology, a different logic to physical store world, because there's a significant cost to acquiring new customers, 15 quid in this retailer's case. So you must make sure that if you're doing online, you're happy to do the numbers. I've not got a slide on social media. I can tell you that it is less successful in converting than typical channels such as Google, and the downside is anybody who tells me they can track their social media accounts successfully, come and tell me how you do it, because attribution on social media is particularly poor. Facebook will tell you the number of click-throughs and conversions you get, and that is actually totally different to what Google Analytics will tell you. Google Analytics is always substantially lower than Facebook. The truth is probably somewhere in between. If ever you want to know how this works, talk to me separately. I love it. It's a great topic because it's numbers, but I appreciate it's not everybody's bag. Right, so at that, I will step now. Hopefully you found something interesting.
Thank you very much. Right, folks. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for our learned panel? Don't ask me anything, because clearly I don't know anything. But any questions? Hey.
You just said that Google Ads are perhaps a better way of getting more customers than your social media feeds. Does the same apply to doing adverts on social media?
Okay, so when we talk social media, you're right. We have to talk about it in 2 different ways. One is I've got a social media account and I'm creating postings and I'm hoping that people will engage with me naturally and like it and share it and comment on it, and I can build a natural audience. No cost to that, fantastic. What I'm talking about here is when you then use social media from an advertising perspective. And we do quite a lot of it as a business. But what you have to accept is that the engagement rate and sale rate from that is substantially different. Now, if you're interested, I could talk a bit more because it is a good topic. I don't know what we're doing on time. So, what actually happens is Facebook and Google track your interaction in a different way. So from Facebook, if you interact with one of your adverts and they cookie track, so they've got a marker of you having interacted, they will hold the period of time of that cookie much longer. So you might interact with my site today, and then in 4 weeks' time you might come directly to my site to make a purchase, but your cookie's still alive. Yeah? Google will say, if you've searched Lake and Levy to find my website, that they won that sale. Facebook will say, we won that sale. What's the actual truth? And the way that we have attribution is quite difficult in that region, because it's difficult to know who genuinely did generate, and therefore you end up with a substantial shift between, well, is my Facebook marketing really working? Because Google suggests it isn't. And you've got to make a judgment. They want you to spend on Google, and the truth is, I don't know the answer. I wish we did.
I'm not sure there is.
We did.
And Martin's right, isn't it? Definitive answer. It's very difficult to track, and we have lots of members asking that question: where should I advertise, Google or social media? Our answer is if you can do both, do both.
Oh, my answer would be Google every day. If you've got a limited pot of spend, put it into Google, because at least you can work out if it's working. Yeah? I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm just going to say that if you had to choose, Google.
I'm brand building as well as I am selling. And actually social media is great for brand building, in that you can create video snippets and stories and such like. And you can have a different level of engagement. And what we talk about is the funnel. So, you know, if you've never heard of my brand, you're at the top of my buying funnel. By the time you've got to the bottom, you're hopefully purchasing we create brand interest at the top of the funnel using social media. So at that stage, we've not mentioned this. All we've done is talk about our story. We've engaged in terms of the interest in leather goods or women's wear, if it's not women's wear brands or whatever it might be.
And I think that comes back to that capture the customer, that understand your customer, because different media channels will reach out to different types of customer. Some people prefer Insta, some people prefer Facebook. I'm just a Google person. It's that. So you really got to understand which one's going to reach out.
And that's a good point there, because Bing is the secondary search engine to Google. Again, if you've got a limited budget, forget Bing. Forget it. Yeah. I mean, we put a little bit of our spend into Bing, and we do make sure it pays back, but the majority of the spend and traffic is through Google.
Sorry, I don't want to comment. I've got a laptop.
No,
That's what we're here for.
Are we not fooling ourselves that people want to have a little chat about our business? Like, so you go on Facebook to catch up with your friends and check on all your ex-boyfriends. Why would you suddenly want to have a little chat with a leather company? Are we not fooling ourselves that really we should just put all our efforts into advertising?
Statistically, you're wrong.
That's good. I want to be wrong.
And that's why I really like online retail, because everything is mathematical. You can see what you've spent, you can see what the interaction is, you can see what it's created in terms of revenue and profitability. But I get what you're saying, and I think Eric made the point, try and have some personality to what you're doing.
So what you said about the personality thing is really important.
well, understanding your customer is really important, but the way you engage with those customers has got to be, personality is the right word. What you stand for in your shop, the way you are, the way you want your staff to be, has to come across in that two-dimensional world of online, because it's quite two-dimensional. You're just reading a post. There's no social interaction. It's that emotional versus rational concept that Martin was talking about. And the members who talk to us who have had greater success with online engagement, and you look at some of their postings, it is about them and their staff and their people. That comes across loud and clear. And then they read what their shop is about into that as well. Yeah. And you can see that others are, as Eric said, it's just very sort of bland, talk, shop words, but that's not enough. You need to tell people why they should come. It's not just come and shop. Yeah, well, no, I suppose that's just communication, isn't it? We all, if you think about it, what drives my wife mad is the lack of interaction between staff and customers when you guys into a shop. You will not find that in many independents. They're quite chatty.
Absolutely.
And they need to be, because that's where the sale takes place. It's not, but it's and you've got to get that into the social media world as well.
Yeah, just on that point, to go back into the dark days when it was just all print journalism, I was made editor of Draper's Record, which was by that time it was about 115 years old. It'd been the market leader all that time. Everybody in the industry knew it. And my view was journalists should not become the story. It shouldn't be, where you see in the Sunday paper where the picture of the journalist is bigger than the picture of the person they're interviewing. I was against all that sort of thing, but myself and I was the editor and my boss was the publisher, who was in charge of the money side of things, the advertising. She said the magazine had a little bit of a downturn, and she said, right, we're here to give it a boost again, and this magazine needs personality. It's not enough to say it's Draper's Record and it's been around since 6th of August 1887. We need a face, and the face of the magazine is going to be you, Eric. And I thought, I don't really like that idea, but nothing better than nothing gained. So on my editorial column, my editor's comment, we put my picture, which I was totally against. I thought it shouldn't be about me, it should be about Draper's Record. She was right and I was wrong, because I became literally the face of Draper's. So even today, which is 22 years since we did that, people still come up to me and say, "Oh, you're Eric from Drapers, aren't you?" And the point of the matter was, it was me being literally the face of Drapers. And that's what independent retailers have got to do, I believe. They've got to put themselves at the front. It's hard for Martin, because he's got 28 shops, but if you've only got one shop and they're coming to see you, or one cinema, it's much easier. And it's much more one person's vision that you're buying into. And then if somebody doesn't like your vision, that's fine, go and shop somewhere else, but you'll be more important to the people that do engage with you. As Martin made the point, if you haven't got the right mix to engage with enough people, you're not going to be successful anyway. So I do think it's important for people to try and, it's very hard to do, to try and step outside, literally outside the shop, and look at it from the customer's point of view, not from your own. Any other points? Any other questions? Very, very high quality information. You get it for free.
I've got one. Obviously, the amount of experience and knowledge you've got, which retailers do it well for you? While the fact that it's got, whether it be independent, you can't say they can.
Well, I think Lakeland Leather do it really well.
Individually, I hear and see lots of really positive stories. I've been to some awards last week, judging, and all of independent retailers, from lingerie to ladies' wear to accessories. The common feature of all of them was that they understood their business, they were the business, they really understood it, and that makes a huge amount of difference. On a larger scale, I think I mentioned Next yesterday or something, but Next to me is a kind of company that been around a long time now and still managed to be relevant. And if you look at the way they manage their business, they're not into massive sales generally, they're not into just selling for the sake. They seem to know their customer, they seem to know their. So I think Next seem to have a pretty good standing out there. But you look at some of the failures and you think, well, that's because they lost sight of what's important to them. It's not always due to the people. Sometimes it's the way the businesses are structured. In the case of Evans, but Arcadia Topshop just lost sight of what they were about and didn't grow with the market. But on the good side, I think large retailers there's thousands of brilliant examples in local high streets, from butchers to bakers to fashion shops who just go out there and know their customer.
Martin, favourite?
It's difficult. I think Jules were doing a good job until recently, and they seem to have just lost a little bit of traction. Perhaps iconic print style has just become so ubiquitous that customers are gravitating away from it. I don't know. So I started in electrical retail, and we always used to try and recruit buyers who were ex-Dixons or Perez. And we used to say that was the university for our industry. Next is the university for fashion. And we trade on Next. We've got quite a big business through Next, across however many SKUs on this through. So we work with them quite closely, and they are particularly good, I would say. Their team are schooled in the right way, albeit they tend to move their buyers along very, very quickly. So just as they go on top of a category, they're moved on to a new category that they know very little about. But in fairness, they do a lot right. And I'm a chartered accountant by background and some humans. There's one financial report I always read. If you've never read a financial report, congratulations. But if ever you need to read one, choose Next, because the way that they explain their gross margin, their full price margin, their discount margin, the way that they explain what is happening at a retail store level, rents, etc., is an education for anybody who's interested in retail and running a retail business. Picking up on Andrew's point, there are loads of great independents as well, but the ones that you can probably relate to are perhaps John Lewis. used to be great, but it's just lost a little bit of way. Marks and Spencer is coming back, I've got to say. I was looking at their women's wear collection in their York store just a couple of weeks ago, and I was really pleased that it's really starting to come back, I feel. I was really disappointed that their pricing is so low, and I think that is undermining quality fashion. Some of their textile choices weren't necessarily sustainable or quality, but in terms of their price points, I thought it was way too. But yeah, Marks and Spencer is perhaps one to watch going forward.
Yeah, I would say in answer to that, I would also highlight Next, which is 40 years old this year. It started in February 1982. I think a very key point about Next is that people in my game, sort of fashion industry commentators, moan, saying Next is really dull and it's this and it's that. Next knows its market obsessively and just sticks to it. And they've also, unusually, they have had the same CEO in Lord Wolseley, Simon Wolseley, for 20 years. So for half of their life, they've had the same guy in charge. He was the deputy to the previous guy. They've only had 3 CEOs since 1982. So George Davis got the Heathrow after getting going, and his ego got the better of him. Then David Jones put it back, and also because he came from a mail order background, he was very systems driven, which is what mail order is about, and he was in a good place to maximise Next's, getting hold of online very early. So they are probably the experts at really having a multi-channel or omni-channel, whatever the term is these days, approach. And then they had a guy in Simon Wolseley, who got to be one of the best retailers, well, probably the best retailer of his generation. And he just has a vision, and they don't deviate from it. And if people say it's boring, and the stores aren't really exciting, and this and that, that's fine. Look how much money they've made year in, year out, year in, year out. So from that point of view, I think there's a lot to admire about that Next. Another one that I would mention would be River Island. So River Island is the third iteration of a retail concept which was started way back in the 1940s by a man called Bernard Lewis, who's 96 now, and he's still president of the company. So the Lewis family own River Island. And before River Island, their business was called Chelsea Girl. And before Chelsea Girl, their business was called Lewis Separates. So Bernard Lewis is the most impressive person I've met in 40 odd years of doing this job. And he was a pioneer in so many different ways. He was one of the first retailers to set up his own design studio, rather than just buying from other people. He was one of the first to go out to the Far East. He had a very successful business, which then he completely changed, virtually overnight, from Lewis Separates to Chelsea Girl. And then when Chelsea Girl ran its course, they tested one shop in, I think, Newquay or Weymouth, and said, okay, River Island works, so we'll just change the whole change. And that's the advantage of being family owned and doing what you like. So I'm interviewing him in November at a dinner, because I get actually well with him. And he's a fascinating guy, and he's just so simple in his attitude. It was once in another time of tough trading, somebody told me, another economic collapse, blah, blah, blah. Somebody went to him and said, right, you have to call him Mr. Bernard, because there were 4 brothers all called Mr. Lewis, so it's Mr. Bernard, Mr. Davidson. So Mr. Bernard, what do you think we should do? Because of the situation we're in. So he said, I think we should produce more clothes that people want to buy. And that was the answer. And he just keeps it so simple. And I think, with great respect to my chartered accountant friend here, I think retailing is really simple, and the problems happen when people start making it difficult, i.e. John Lewis, Marks and Spencer in the past. Just keep it really simple. Any more? For any more? For any more? No? Well, we've got a show to go around. There's only a day and a half left of it, so thank you very much for your attention. Martin, thank you. Andrew, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your attention.